Today's guest, Ken Webb, has lived several lifetimes in one. He spent 33 years in the U.S. Army, rising to lieutenant colonel, with combat tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Kosovo. He faced the toughest leadership challenges imaginable, making life or death calls in the world's most volatile places. But Ken's battles began long before the military. Growing up in a home of trauma and chaos, he learned resilience the hard way. That drive carried him through combat, a second career with American Airlines, and eventually into a bold decision to stop just surviving and start living. Now in Peru, Ken is finishing his debut novel, Trapped in Deception, a psychological thriller born from real experience, exploring betrayal, manipulation, and emotional warfare. Ken isn't here to sell hype. He's here to talk about real things, trauma recovery, leadership under fire, rebuilding after the uniform, and the courage it takes to create a new future. Hey, how's it going, Ken?
It's going well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, no problem, man. I'm glad we were able to get it to happen after my little fazoo of not being able to remember what day it was.
Well, that's okay. I scheduled on the same day I wanted to do it, and that's good because I'm trying to get my book out there, so I'm trying to hop on as many shows as I can.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right on into it. What brought you to the military? Let's start there.
Well, all my life, growing up, I knew I wanted to be in the military, but what I wasn't clear on, some people like my cousin's son, he's wanted to be special forces. Oh, he knew that he wanted to be Army Special Forces. I never knew, I never thought I wanted to be a pilot, but I was thinking, well, maybe Navy, maybe submarines, maybe, maybe Army, I never really thought Air Force, never really thought Marine Corps. Wanted one of the bigger services just for me, more opportunities I felt. But, I graduated high school, was an average student, was at a junior college and not very athletic. And I saw a colleague of mine in a uniform, a military uniform, changing in the gymnasium. I think I had one school, and he was changing in the gymnasium. And, I went over to him. His name was Wayne Woodgate. I remember that now. And I said, what's going on? I mean, you have on this uniform, and, he was in an ROTC program. So he got talking to me more about it. And that following summer, I wound up going to basic training, and I got myself an ROTC scholarship. And I got commissioned from the University of Texas at Arlington, one of the satellite schools, not UT Austin.
Yeah.
And I had a degree in English literature and got commissioned as a military police officer into the Army Reserves.
Okay.
But because I was focused on learning instead of, you're like, well, you go to university. Well, what's wrong with going there to learn? Well, you have to play the game too. You need to get the grades. And my grades weren't very good. And it wasn't because I was a partier. I basically didn't drink in college. I was not a partier, very serious. Didn't really date except for military balls, didn't drink. But, the first person in my family to go to college, and I didn't understand how to do it right. So it was in 1992. That was at the height of the cutbacks after a desert storm. So it was hard to get commissioned. I only was able to get commissioned because at my school, they commissioned people, and it was done alphabetically at this time. My last name is Webb. So I would not have made it if the professor of military science had not obtained an exception for me because I was a scholarship recipient. So it's like, hey, he needs to fulfill his scholarship. You need to let him get commissioned. And so they're able to have powers be made that happen. And I was in Texas, and it was pretty uneventful for years. There wasn't a lot of funding in the 90s. Yeah. I don't know I guess you were in the military at that time.
Yep. I came in 94 and retired in 2014.
Okay. Did you come in where you guard or reserve at all, or?
I started out as the reserves, but before I went to basic, I had switched to active. So I
Okay.
only did a couple drills and then went straight to active.
Okay, but you knew the funding was just not spectacular then.
Yeah.
And as a reservist, I had some civilian jobs. Now I tried to get a master's degree right afterwards, and even though my grades weren't good, they were going to let me try a few classes. I think I got a C in one and a B in another. That's not good enough. If you want to convince them that you're good enough to get a master's degree and your GPA is not good enough, and they're going to let you try some classes, you want to get A's in those classes.
Yeah.
And, once again, and I was trying to get a master's in literature, English literature. And I wound up going back years later, like 19 years later, where I got a master's in intelligence analysis from American Military University. And at that time, I was an intelligence officer. So I had a big advantage over people that were in their 20s in my class. I knew a lot of this. And the class was online. It was all unclassified, everything like that, as you know. Just, a lot of our intelligence comes from unclassified sources. It's just methodologies. Yep. So anyway, back to your question. In 2001, the opportunity came up. I was working at American Airlines, working in reservations. Opportunity for a tour came up. And I was broke at the time. I was actually in debt. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll do it. And at that time, they didn't have a lot of reservists or National Guardsmen hopping on tours.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of stuck. At that point, I was a captain, commissioned second lieutenant and went first lieutenant and then captain, normal progression, and went to Kosovo, Camp Bondsteel as the force protection officer. Mobilized 15 April 2001. Got there, I think it was the 22nd of April. It's been a while, but I think that's what it was. But as things would turn out, I think it was a 6-month tour that got extended a month, something like that. But I was there on 9/11. I was a force protection meeting in Pristina, Kosovo. And they went to they said Delta, but when you're at force protection Delta, you don't move. So we people were still moving, so we were at Charlie. Mm-hmm. And for anybody listening, that's just force protection measures for security. That's all people need to know. We went to a high protection thing, and that was an MP's job that I was doing. And after that, the purse strings opened up, and I had an opportunity through a thing called tour duty to do tours with the Army Reserves. And I took advantage of the Soldiers and Sailors Act, which, for those who don't know what that is, that's you get unless it has changed, you get 90 days to return to your civilian job after a mobilization of, I think it's 181 days or more. And then they have different tricks they pull. Like, some employers will only allow you to voluntarily be away from employment for 5 years voluntarily, but then you can volunteer to be involuntarily mobilized. It's exactly how it was put to me. But American Airlines threw that out the window. They said, as long as troops are deployed, you're able to just mobilize. And I did. And so after I came back from Kosovo, I went down to Joint Task Force 6, which is now Joint Task Force South on the border of Mexico, mm-hmm. in Texas and Arizona. And that was a counter drug mission. It wasn't involved actually with what was going on with 9/11 so much that I don't think it was connected to that as much as it was just a tour that opened up. I was only there like 3 months, but then I got to go to the Joint Analysis Center in Jack Molesworth in England. That was a very interesting tour because at that time we were wearing the BDUs, mm-hmm. and I was clearly a military police officer, which, as you will remember, it said on their MP.
Yep, sure did.
But I was trying to transition to military intelligence. I originally had tried to be military intelligence. People make up these stories to cover up what really happened. I don't believe in doing that. I didn't get selected for it. I didn't get selected, I'm sure, because of my grades. Yeah. And when I say my grades, I think, I don't remember, but I think it was like a 2.64. It wasn't even a 3.0.
Yeah.
And that's just because, the teacher would say, okay, we're going to have an exam on Thursday. It's going to be on chapters 3 through 7. Well, what would I do? I would read chapters 1 through 9, thinking, I'm doing a good job here. Yeah, but I wasn't.
Yeah, I apologize for the dogs. They're doing construction next door in the house, and so they keep hearing people hammering. But
oh no, I just got concerned because you went silent for a minute, so I was going to make sure that you could hear me.
No, so, I got you. I'll make sure I get this all edited out. But,
okay.
So it sounds like you had an interesting career. I mean, I know at that point a lot of the reservists, National Guard, were all doing a lot of missions. I mean, as the up-tempo after 9/11 happened, that whole 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year kind of went out the window. And some of them I know found the loopholes to catch as many rides as they can, so it goes towards their retirement on what time period they get their retirement. But they played a significant role in our global war of terrorism. Not just the borders and all the stuff that you guys were already doing in the United States, but there was a point I remember in my career when I was with the 160th, we were so deployed we didn't have enough people left to run the base in the United States. So
now that's the aviation wing you're talking about, the special operations.
Correct.
Okay, because my cousin's son who wants to be special forces, her other son was in the 160th.
Okay. Yep. I was there for 10 years from 2000 to 2010. Yep.
2010. Okay, I think that's before his time, but I will ask. You wouldn't know Brian. We wouldn't know Brian Crocker. He was a mechanic. He was a mechanic.
I was a mechanic as well, so I would have. If he was in Savannah, I definitely would have known him. He was probably at Campbell.
He was at Campbell. He was at Campbell. Probably he was at Campbell.
Yep. Yeah. So but we ended up having the National Guard from Iowa. They came in and took over the home front. Just like I said, because we didn't have the manning. We had people in Iraq, Afghanistan. We had people in Colombia. I mean, we were all over the place. And only having 300 people in your battalion, it diminishes pretty quickly. So, I have a lot of respect for the National Guard, the reserves, because I know behind the scenes what they did. And some of those guys went forward with us. I had several come with me to Afghanistan.
I definitely think the lines have blurred a lot more between the two. When I first joined, it was not common for a reservist or National Guardsman to have mobilized. They just didn't do it. They go their whole career and never see any combat. I have people say you'll never have to worry about this. Well, it did happen after 9/11. It was. I felt very blessed to be able to go to Kosovo. This is before 9/11. It was like, I jumped on that.
Yeah,
and it was mutually beneficial. It was a win-win situation. I got out of debt, got to save up money, had a respectable job, got to keep my civilian job.
Yeah.
What you talked about, it was actually George Bush Jr. who enacted an act, and it was effective as of 2008. Now, remember, I started mobilizing in 2001, but I was still mobilizing up until 2021. So, I mean, I lowered my retirement age from 60 to 53. And when I retired, after, some of the red tape, it was backdated. I started receiving my pension, my Army pension, as of the date of my retirement. And with all the mobilizations, I had enough points, which is how they figure it for Guard and Reserves, to get what a lieutenant colonel gets on with a 20-year retirement. And I just got under 18 years of active duty. If you get to 18 years, you get sanctuary, then they have to let you stay in another 2 years. And some people are experts at playing the game. I wasn't. And I went to Jack Molesworth, and I was there in a slot as an intelligence officer, but I hadn't been to the intelligence school. So I actually had some people, but I jumped on the tour. I mean, I asked them before I took the tour. I said, you guys know I'm an MP. And the person hiring me, she was a GS. She said, "Oh, no, that's fine. You have a TS clearance," because I was in the process.
Mhm.
And so people basically there at Jack Molesworth in England, intelligence officers trained me on how to do some intelligence before I went to the school. And I went, after I left there, I was doing an around the world trip. I was in Phuket, Thailand, scuba diving, and got notified that my reserve unit was mobilizing. And at that time, I hadn't transferred to military intelligence. So I went to OIF 1 as an MP captain. I was working for the S3 as a battle captain. And while I was over there, I got the opportunity to be a company commander, returned back to the States, did, I guess, about 2 years, just being a weekend warrior again, finishing out my command. And then I branch transferred to military intelligence, went to Fort Huachuca, was there 33 months before I mobilized to go to Afghanistan. So it was, I just jumped tour to tour to tour, went to Germany, support of Operation New Dawn or Odyssey Dawn. I can't remember the name, but I was only there like 60 days in an office doing things. Came back from that, was with the 75th Training Division in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then down at Fort Hood, training Reserve and National Guard units. More than trained, it was more like assessing them before they deployed. And then went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, running some contracts over there with linguists. Went to Germany, actually as a logistician for a year. And I got an additional skill identifier. So they had to train me up on how to do that. I wasn't a logistician. I went to like a 3-week school. So I had that additional skill identifier, and then did nine months additional in Germany in Stuttgart, working in intelligence for real. Came back from there, did some other intelligence work out in Tampa for Central Command, and then went out to Kuwait, working with intelligence, but more in an administrative role. And that was during COVID. In 2020, I came back and I retired June the 1st, 2020. I was very depressed, extremely depressed. I was at one of my best friend's houses. I was working out in his yard, looked at my phone, had an email come in, and it was one of those, so much of your retirement, your retirement is null and void. You are extended for an additional 2 years. And I didn't do anything exceptional, outstanding. What happened is that they picked different branches, and one of them was military intelligence, to extend lieutenant colonels for 2 years to give them a chance to make colonel. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to look for a battalion command. I called around for battalion commands. Every place I called told me the same thing. They said, you have to have 2 years left. And I said, well, I was extended 2 years. But by the time I got the news and I started calling, I no longer had 2 years. They were a stickler for 2 years.
Wow.
I did my last tour at the United States Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq. And it was just chief of operations. Once again, an intel guy doing operations. It was challenging for me. Diplomatic mission, got to wear a suit most of the time. I did contracting for 7 months. And I hadn't fully retired yet from the from the reserves. And I was out in Kuwait again. Did not like the contracting world in that contract.
Yeah.
I know some contractors love their job. I don't want to dissuade anybody. I don't want anybody to get upset with me. I don't want to badmouth contractors. I've only done one contract. It was for 7 months. I came back to help my mother taking care of my stepfather who had dementia. When that got under control, I went down to Peru to see my best friend who was dying of cancer, stage 4 cancer. And, I also was studying Spanish down here. And, I got called up for another tour. And I was down here for 3 months. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my thing down here. I want to write my book. I want to study Spanish. I want to get my doctorate.
Yeah. So let's unpack that a little bit. You said that as you were getting out and you're transitioning before you got that letter that you were, extremely depressed. Was that because of leaving from the military, and
Yes, it was. Now, I mean, we remember COVID. I mean, we remember how, first of all, we know that, like, and I went through this when I got my master's degree before COVID. I did some research on this, that, you know, people when they go through graduate school, whether it's for a master's degree or a PhD, typically go through depression.
Yeah.
And it's isolation. You have to isolate yourself. You have to tell people no. My girlfriend down here got upset sometimes when I would tell her, no, I can't see you, I'm working on my book. She said, well, you do your own schedule. And I was like, well, it's still a job to me. Yep. And you know, during your master's degree, you can't always hang out with your friends. And I was mobilized when I did my master's degree. So I would work out something with one of my bosses. I worked out the best. We would do these assessments of people before they went out to Iraq, Afghanistan, or in some cases Honduras or other places. And I would work, you know, till late at night. I'd work on the weekends, you know, whatever. And then I would take one of those online classes. And during that time, he would just let me work on the class. But I would go through depression, and it was like, and my mother was giving me advice, go out, get sun for 30 minutes a day, you know, and that would actually turn out, you know, we don't think our parents know anything, but that she turned out to be right in that. And so what I'm leading into by that is COVID, whatever that was, COVID was that, like, to the 10th factor, because we had, I mean, whether you're a gregarious person or not, you need human contact, and talking to somebody on the phone or video is better, but it's not the same.
Correct. I agree.
Otherwise, you would never need to see but people get excited when they're returning from Iraq or Afghanistan to see their kids. You're not going to say, well, what's the problem? You've been Skyping with them the whole time. No, it's not like that.
Yep.
It's you want to be close to them. You want to share moments with them. And so I didn't go to my mother's house when I returned because she was elderly. By that I mean over 70, and she didn't want me to. You quarantine for a while, so I went down to my friend's house in Harlingen, Texas, and, you know, helped him in the yard. And he was very good about, you know, all the things, adhered to the mask, and, you know, whatever, you know, people have different beliefs on that, but he adhered to it, and I adhered to it also because I was living in his house. But I can remember, just like you know, some people binge watch. I read Game of Thrones, and just read and read and read and read and read. And he would have meetings, like, you know, with people from the neighborhood, and they'd sit out in his driveway, and he, you know, we would do space, you know, have some spaces between us to try to do that. But I mean, but I was very depressed about getting out of the military because I identified myself. I mean, what are you going to identify yourself as? A reservation agent at American Airlines or a lieutenant colonel in the Army?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
An intelligence officer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what a lot of people don't understand. And I'm talking about the soldiers that are transitioning, you know, up to that point when they talk about they want to get out, they think that other side is what they want, and that it's a green grass pasture. But what they fail to realize is once they step across that, your whole identity gets stripped from you. You're no longer in charge of troops. You're no longer respected as a leader. You know, all of those things play a factor. And then, like you said, COVID comes along, and now you've got soldiers that were supposed to VTS but can't. You've got soldiers that are in shitholes that they don't like, say Korea or whatever. But now there's no PCSing, so now they're stuck there until they open it up for people to move again. The military was a mess during COVID. It absolutely was. And you know, I guess you can get into politics with it or whatever, but at the end of the day, it affected people's lives and it affected their well-being.
Yeah, there were people being held in theater in Kuwait when I was there, but I remember my NCOIC spoke to me, non-commissioned officer in charge. I don't know if all your audience is military or not. So he said that he was at a meeting and they mentioned me. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, there was a general, like the deputy there. he was Air Force, and he said, "Hey, we need to get this lieutenant colonel that's retiring. We need to make sure that we get him out of theater." Yeah, and whether that was done to be malevolent or just because they would get them in trouble, or I don't know, but either way, I got to leave.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sometimes people do the right thing just because it benefits them. Some people genuinely want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I worked for a general. He was my senior rater at the United States Embassy, Baghdad, Iraq, General John Tykert, and he was a test pilot, and he was MIT graduate, and he's just a super nice guy. And he's authored several books. And when I told him I was writing one, he took time out of his schedule. He called me, what's your WhatsApp number, whatever, and then said how proud he was of me. And for somebody who's that busy, because I see him on the news, people question him about that's how important he is. He made 2-star, but he turned it down. He wanted to work in the civilian sector, feeling he can make more of an impact. But that's somebody who, like, every year on my birthday on Facebook, he remembers to wish me a happy birthday, gives people personalized cards. So he's not somebody doing it for himself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I work with a lot of veteran musicians, and there's a veteran musician that we work with. He does the same thing. You just randomly will get a text from him. Hey, I was thinking about you today. How's it going? And so forth. And at the end of the day, we kind of built a bond, that buddy check goes a long ways. So let me ask you this. You get out and you decide to stay in Peru, and you decide to write your book. I know as an author as well, the first time I wrote a book, it shocked me on how hard it really is. It is not the easiest task. So let's kind of dive into your writing career now. You sit down, you decide to write. What was your objective? Did you decide, hey, I'm going to be a fiction writer, or did you start out, like a lot of other soldiers do, with a memoir, or how did you start it out?
Okay, well, the longest thing I had written previously was my master's thesis, which started out being like 86 pages. And when I got it done, it was like 53. And it was a far better document because, something doesn't have to be long to be good.
Yep.
I actually had a teacher tell me that the better ones are the shorter ones. Yeah, it was somebody, I don't want to get a quote wrong, but somebody told me it was Mark Twain that said, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. Meaning, you get it down there. So yeah. I was down here. I'm like, what are my goals? Because there were people in Spanish, we say conocidos, just people that I know, but that weren't friends, but I knew of them. Some of them, I don't even know what they look like, but 4 people died that were a little bit older than me, but not much. And, 3 from a heart attack, 1 from cancer. So I was like, nothing is guaranteed in this life. So number 1, you need to lose some weight, Ken. And then number 2, you need to take care of yourself, but you also need to do the things that you want to do. Yeah. It's a gravy train. I mean, people go for the contract because like, okay, now I did my time. Not that the military does not have great benefits, and not that it doesn't pay decent, it does.
Yeah.
But if you want to make the serious money, you you get your pension, which I had my pension, and then you go you go and you get your money through contracting, and then you get some serious money. And I did that for a while, but it's not all about money. If you're doing it for the money, it's the wrong thing. Yeah. So I was like, what do I want to do? I had goals originally. It was very chronological. It was very, I'm going to get fluent in Spanish. I'm going to get fluent in French. I'm going to get my PhD or doctorate. Not all doctorates are PhDs. And then I'm going to write a book. So I was speaking to one professor here at the language school I go to is El Sol in the Miraflores district of Lima, Peru. El Sol is the sun, literally. Her name was Isabel Ramos. And she said, why do you want to study French? Nothing wrong with that, but what are you going to do with that? Do you want to live in France? Do you want to? Well, no, not really. It just, I guess I was just being a Renaissance man. Well, in 24 hours, I took that goal away.
Yeah,
And
it's a tough language.
Well, not only that, I took Spanish for 4 years in high school. I took it for 2 years in university. Granted, I took it in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it for a year down here last year before my mother got sick and I had to go back. She died. Then I was away for 9 months. Then I returned. But I studied 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for a year. I'm still not fluent in it.
Yeah.
So talk about a language like French that I have not studied. That's going to be hard. And then how useful is it? It reminds me when I was in Afghanistan and we were walking around and can't remember the base, but somebody had spray painted something on a wall. And we had this analyst there with us, and we're working with a lot of interrogators, human intelligence analysts. And I was walking along, and I was in charge of them. And somebody had written something on a wall in Klingon, from Star Trek, Klingon. Okay. And I was like, oh, well. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know why they do that. But then the guy with me that worked for me, he translated it. And I said, no, I can't remember his name, but I was like, okay, well, that's neat. But why do you know that? Why did you waste your time learning that language? You work in intelligence. That language is based off Russian. Why didn't you learn Russian? Why didn't you learn something you could do something with? And that's why I wiped out French.
Yeah.
So then I was speaking to a teacher in the same school. His name is Romeo. And he's like, okay, so is your book based on your PhD? And I said, no. And he said, why do you have to wait to write your book? Why does everything have to be like this? Why can't things be going on at the same time?
Yeah.
And now my stuff is more fluid. And I changed my priority to the book. And then I'm going to get my doctorate. But I'm going to live down here in Peru. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I consider myself to have a very large vocabulary and to be well spoken.
Yeah.
But yet I'm learning English all the time. I learn new words. I learned a word, I guess it's been about a year now, but it was vapid. I didn't know what vapid meant. And, you hear things all the time. And I heard somebody from a guy who was from France and he used a word. And I was like, I'll be honest. I'm a native speaker. I don't know what that word is. So, it's kind of saying, you're going to be learning Spanish the rest of your life. You're going to be learning English the rest of your life. But I am defining fluency in that people have if you had a normal everyday conversation with somebody in your office there and you were talking, I would understand everything for the most part. So I'm going to define fluency as I'll understand 85%. I went to a doctor down here and I couldn't understand hardly anything. And I kept asking her to slow down and she'd slow down. But then I spoke to one of my teachers and she said, when I go to the doctor, I don't understand that either because they like to use big words and complex sentences. Yeah. So, if there was a medical doctor and you guys were talking, you're both medical doctors, I would not be able to follow you. But in a normal everyday conversation to include slang, I want to pick up about 85% of what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because you can then drive the sentences together and understand what the context.
You can make the connections. You can ask people to clarify. I've been, like I said, I was away for 9 months. I had my mother got sick and died. Then her brother, my uncle, died 2 months later. He didn't have a will, so that's a mess. We're still figuring that out. My stepfather died roughly a little over a year after my stepfather died. Roughly a year after my mother. And, I wound up selling her house. And then his oldest son died like 6 weeks after he died. My stepfather had dementia and my stepbrother had, and this is actually a separate condition, I'm told, early Alzheimer's. Oh, wow. His wife had told me he had early Alzheimer's. And I thought that just meant he was young and he got it because he was 60 when he got it. Mm-hmm. Apparently that's a separate disease that kills you quicker.
Huh, I did not know that.
Well, I'm going to have to look it up after this show because I never looked it up. But she told me that, so I'm just going off what she says.
Mm-hmm.
And she's intelligent. She does her research, so I don't know. I just don't know. But anyway, I mean that's why it's going like that. I'm like, nothing is guaranteed, and so I'm at a point of frustration right now in my book. I gave my editor my book because there comes a point where you hire paid beta readers. Now you've written a book.
Yep.
I had free beta readers. But then I had some beta readers like, you know what? I started reading this. I don't like it. It's not my kind of book. And they just stop. They don't give me any comments. When you get a paid beta reader, they're obligated to at least finish the book. And I went on Fiverr to do it. And I got my front cover made, my rear cover made. And I not on Fiverr, but I got a really good editor. She did developmental editing, not cheap, expensive.
Yeah.
And she's doing my line by line editing, and I'm going to have her do the proofreading. Now, the line by line editing was due last Thursday. In the afternoon, about 16:40, I received, she's in Alberta, Canada. So she's an hour behind me. I'm in Central Time. I received an email from her, and it's like, look, I really apologize, but I want to do another run through on your book. I want to make sure I give it attention to detail. I'd really appreciate it if you would give me until we only communicate by email until the beginning of next week. Okay. Well, today is Wednesday, and yesterday it didn't come in, and it didn't come in this morning. So now this is where you run into the thing about, you don't want to make her angry.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't want to do a good job, or she just says, okay, here it is. So I sent a message and I said, look, maybe I missed something. I mean, I check my email about literally every 5 minutes. I'm checking in the trash. I'm checking in the spam, but there is a chance, because things like this have happened to me, that she sent it and I didn't get it. Yeah. If it was too large of a file and I need to clear up my email a little bit, that has happened to me before.
Yeah.
So I'd sure hate to get all, wrapped around the axle, and it's something like I need to clear out my email more. But I sent her that message. She hasn't responded yet. But there comes a point where these beta readers, I hired a bunch of them, and they started contradicting each other, because I use both military time, 24-hour time, and I use the AM and PM. And for the chapter of each book, I use military time. And for the military personnel in there, I use military time, although we know a lot of military people use both. And a lot of them prefer AM or PM. I actually prefer military time because there's no such thing as 1500 in the morning.
Yep.
But there is 3 in the morning and then 3 in the afternoon, and you don't get confused.
Yep. I agree.
But with the civilians in there, I use AM and PM because they don't operate that way. I know that Spain is the only country I know of that uses the 24-hour clock. Maybe some other ones do too. There probably are. I just don't know it. But the novel was very therapeutic for me. If you've ever Trapped in Deception, it's about betrayal. I had a person, he was my friend. I was the best man at his wedding. And someone who just lied, manipulated, a person who used other people and then would just gaslight. And these people exist in the military. I've experienced it. I am certain you have dealt with people that could look you right in the face and lie to you.
Yep.
And then the next day, even deny they even said it, or said you got them confused with someone else, or,
Yep.
Very hard to tie down. And the problem is sometimes these people aren't all bad. Sometimes they're fun to be around. They're the life of the party. You have a great time if you're out drinking with them, but then you need them for something and they drop the ball.
Yep.
They turn it into your fault. And I mean, the best way to deal with someone like that is to simply just walk away. And that'll actually drive them crazy. He tried to reach out because I was such a good friend to him, doing so many things for him that, when he just lost that support, then, it's just like some parents some children disrespectful to their parents, so on and so forth. And then if they run away or something like that, they realize how much their parents were really doing for them.
Yeah. You once you burn that bridge, that's when you discover, oh, I wasn't done. I still need, but that doesn't change the root cause. The root cause is just that person's got a shitty personality, and they need to fix their own personality before they think about just building another bridge because they need something, not because
I think I think he's a lost cause, and I think, unfortunately, I'm sure you know this too, that to have emotional intelligence is not the same as being an ethical person. You can have very high, extremely high emotional intelligence and social intelligence and be totally evil.
Yeah.
A lot of your politicians are like that. A lot of your Hitler. I mean, a lot of the people, Mussolini, these were not stupid people. These were people that knew how to manipulate, how to use. Now, you could be a very good person and have high social, emotional intelligence.
Yep.
But, and it's something that we learn, we grow with. So in this novel, it's based on that person. The bad person is, and he's just a person who works for a bank in Dallas, Texas. Mm-hmm. And, when I was in high school, when I graduated high school and during college, I lived near Dallas, Texas. And the book takes place in December 2014, and it goes into 2015 and through to the summer of 2015.
Okay.
The good person in the novel is named Eddie, and he was in Kosovo, Iraq, and Afghanistan the same time I was there. And he used to be a military police officer, and he was military intelligence in the reserves. And he worked for an airline, but he was a computer expert, which I'm not. And so a lot of these things, he had a Kona Blue 2012 Ford Mustang, which is exactly the car that I sold before I came down here to Peru. He's a huge scuba diver, which you saw just on the thing for this page. I'm a huge scuba diver. Yeah. I was 3 weeks in Honduras before I came here. And so it was therapeutic in that you see how, just like my former friend, he would just crumble. I mean, I had one beta reader tell me he looks suave and sophisticated, and then he gets down to Peru and he's like the Big Lebowski. And that's because some people are only able to put up an affront for so long.
Yeah.
And that's why when you're dating, when you're looking for your husband or your wife, you date with somebody for a while. You don't rush in because it's hard to put up an act and fake somebody for a long time. The true nature normally will come out.
Yep.
But
I call that the Facebook mentality. On the cover of your Facebook, everything looks amazing, but behind the writing, life is crumbling.
Yes, and it's therapeutic. It was therapeutic for me. I mean, to walk through, and everybody in my novel who has a speaking role, and even my childhood dog is in my novel. Obviously, no speaking role, but everybody in the novel has a speaking role is based on somebody I personally know.
Okay.
Now, some of them have the same first name. Most of them don't, but it's based up. The story's fictitious, and he escapes. He robs that bank. He doesn't rob it with a pistol. He robs it. I guess you'd call it a white collar crime. He's transfers funds to accounts all over places and steals a cryptocurrency key, which I don't do crypto. I don't trust it, but I had to read up on it, how it works. He stole the key, and the bank was gambling illegally with the money that he stole.
Oh, wow.
So they don't call law enforcement. They go through one of these contracting companies, similar to like Blackwater type thing.
Yep.
You're familiar with those people if you're in the 160th. Yep. And also I came from the United States Embassy, Baghdad. So I was around, it was Triple Canopy there. That's who they were.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a subsidiary or a parent company, but they're doing the same thing. And they have a physical fitness test, just like the Army's. And so you see him steal that, and they did have the foresight on the key to put something in there where it would have it couldn't be unlocked. There's a problem, a technical problem. So the bad person's name is Sean, and Eddie used to work for Sean in the novel, and I used to work for my former friend for a short time, but he mistreated Eddie, cheated him out of some money, did this. Former friend did the same thing, and he's down in Peru. He's at a place called Huancayo, Peru, which I read about it, and it was like touristy for the Peruvians, but not for the gringos, not for the white people like me. Yeah, so I went out there, and I was there 3 days, 3 full days. I didn't see one other Anglo. And to find somebody who spoke English, I had to go to a tour agency. I imagine with the police and stuff, I could have found some, but, I didn't see anybody down there. And, teachers at my school were like, why are you going there? That's not a place that people from the United States go to. And there was some stuff to see. It wasn't that great, but I found a church out there, and I figured out the story, drew pictures, drew illustrations, took pictures. And I'm really excited. The story itself, is very good. It's just up to me to write it well.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it. I'm chomping at the bit for my editor, for her to get it back to me. I don't want to make her angry. And my girlfriend pointed out this morning, you don't want her to hurry up and give you something shoddy. Yep. But at the same time, she's had it. So I'm assuming because she's a good editor, she has a lot of work. I'm hoping because it's late, she'll prioritize mine.
Yeah, it's one of those things. The editing process is brutal. I do a lot of my own, but it is extremely tough, and it takes away from the therapeutic. I think sometimes it creates some anxiety when I do it. I should hire somebody to do it, but I get why, right? So the first book I wrote was called Echoes of War, and it started out more as a document for my kids and my wife, because I never talked about the things that happened and the things I seen, and me and my wife had been together since 7th grade. So she's seen one version of me that changed into a whole nother version. And that therapeutic part comes afterwards, right? I wrote the document, and my daughter is the one that convinced me to publish it. So then I rewrote it and published it. But at that point, you have to look at yourself in a third person kind of, and you find yourself judging yourself on decisions that you're making. And I think that's part of where the therapeutic side of this comes from. You're getting that stuff out. And even if you're doing it fictionally, that for you, you found that same response, that you found the therapeutic part in it. You're still telling your story and documenting the things that's happened. And I think that's important. That's the main mission that I carry. With our nonprofit, we do it through music. And a lot of the songs that were wrote with a war buddy that didn't make it back or something they've seen, but it all comes from life experiences. And, I tell everybody, you need to document your story, whether you're writing it, podcasting it, however you want to do it, but it's going to help you. It's also going to ensure that you have a voice 30 years from now, because in 30 years, we don't know what's going to be taught about our war. We don't know what's going to be taught about our past, and the benefit that we have over, Abraham Lincoln and Civil War era people is now we have technology that once it gets on the internet, it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
If somebody digs hard enough, they'll find your voice. And that's the part that I think is beautiful, is that we do get that chance to document our story, and everybody has one, whether you're military or not, that doesn't matter. Everybody has a story that is worth telling.
Oh yeah.
So I get where the therapeutic part of this comes from. How long did it take you to actually get this book wrote?
Okay, for it to be written, my teacher, when he spoke to me, I started pretty soon after that, and that was December of 2023. And I was still working on it in December. about 7 months. And then when my mother got sick, I stopped for about 7 months. And then let's see. I would say it's probably about a year of work.
Yep.
Probably about a year of work. And then right now, I mean, when I would give something to a beta reader, I would stop working, be for 2 weeks or something like that. Now I gave my appointment, my original appointment with the editor was the 15th of October. That's my mother's birthday. So I was doing that in honor of her. Then I got it done early, and I was having beta readers contradict themselves, and I was changing things and then changing them back. And I was like, okay, now it needs to go to an editor. So I stopped and I sent it. I moved the appointment to the 17th of August, and I gave it to her on the 6th of August, hoping that she would start early, but she didn't, which is fine contractually. But she's had it since then, since the 6th of August, and now we're in September the 10th. So, but I mean, as far as with duration time, I don't count that about 7 months I didn't work on it at all.
Yeah.
So there's been about, and the thing is, I don't know about you, but when I do, the way I do it, I name, versions of it. I'll put like 2025, 09, 09, 10.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have like specific drafts. I have 10 drafts.
Yep.
That's because when it reaches a point where it's like there's significant changes in it, I'll say that draft is complete, or I send it to a beta reader, that'll be complete. And so, and I got it copyrighted, Library of Congress.
Okay.
And I'm going to purchase my own ISBN, because if I use the free one from Amazon, they put a lot of restrictions on that.
Yep.
Purchase my own. I'm going to print it locally in Peru, because there's no such thing as Amazon Peru. They have to ship from the United States. I'm better off printing locally down here. Like I said, I'm not going to make money on this. I'm going to lose money. It just depends on how much I'm going to lose. I'm giving all my teachers a free copy, and the only thing I ask is for an honest review. I would love people to read the book and say, man, this is a really good novel.
Yeah. And I think that, like I said, all the musicians we work with are independent artists. They're not signed. They're not no famous people. And I think that means more to them than money, is somebody saying that they can resonate with what they wrote or what they sang, and all of these forms of media that are out there, I think is truly important. You're absolutely right. Unless you're Stephen King or somebody like that, you're not going to get rich from being an author. Not in today's world, and it is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, it's just the world we live in. But there's a reason why the First Amendment comes before the Second Amendment, and that's because our founding fathers knew that information is the most powerful tool that you could ever have, and that comes from creators like yourself and myself that are doing things. It's just the era and the age is different, and that's the only thing that has changed. So I get your desire to just want people to read it and give you an honest review, because it does come from the heart, and it is something that you are attached to.
Okay.
So what is your goals from this? After this book gets published, do you plan to continue to write?
I do plan to continue to write. I set up the book. I have some hints in there, like who's that person over there? There's and so it can either be a 3-book series or a 5-book series.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards 5-book, but you've written several books.
I'm publishing my second now.
Okay. Well, the first was the hardest and probably the most important, right? Because once you've achieved it, then hey, I can do this.
Yep. I still hate the editing process.
Yes. And so I want to, like I said, I drew it out the world. It's like, learning Spanish is a continuous thing. I want to focus on Spanish for a while. They have an exam that shows you're fluent down here, and it's B uno, like they have A, B, C, D, and B1 is pretty good. I could go for B2. I don't need any of them, but I'd like to get it on my resume if I ever do decide to re-enter the workforce. And I want to get that doctorate, and I want to do it at American Military University. It's a regionally accredited school. That's the good thing. Yep. I have extreme issues with concentration, so I need to do an online school. I'm 56. I've done some research, heard smart remarks from some people in their 20s about, you're too old to go back to school and stuff like that. But I have 34 months left on the GI Bill. I used the tuition assistance for my master's. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to use that. And even though, as you know, when you do online, you don't get as much for room and book VAH. But right. I'm living in Peru, which is
cost of living is a little bit different.
Well, I know some people. I know somebody who went to in Thailand and some other places, and they went in person, so they got a better deal like that. But they still had to commute. They still had to do those things. And so my goals are I want to do that, but I don't want to get like more degrees than a thermometer. I want to get a doctorate.
Yep.
And I don't think I'll pursue another master's degree. I think after that, it's also like, what can you do with it?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, okay, now I need another doctorate. No, I don't believe that. That was like an old mentality I might have had back when I had my bachelor's, or even leaning into, well, I want to get Spanish, then French. Well, that looks good on paper. But, I'd like to come back, earn some money. I'm thinking about, if I go back into contracting, did you do contracting?
I did not. I did. I came out of the military and went straight into owning my own company. I started a trucking company.
Okay, but you worked with contractors, because everybody in the U.S. military worked with contractors.
Yep. And,
we love our contractors. They make great money a lot of times. Sometimes they don't, but a lot of times they do. And, a lot of them are retired military, but you're no longer like on the team. You're like support for the team. And I miss that. Instead of being a lieutenant colonel with my own office, having people work for me, calling me sir, saluting me, I was, hey, Ken, we need some help. Come on over here.
Yep.
And even unfortunately, ran into some people who were still in the military, who had worked for me that I guess thought I was too strict or something, and were disrespectful to me once I was a contractor and had no power. Worked with people who I was in the military with who were lower in rank than me. Then once we were contractors, I guess weren't too nice with me afterwards because they no longer had to be. And so I want to go. I'm kind of giving a long answer to your question, but I want to go back to some type of thing that earns money. And I'm looking on the lines of proofreading or editing myself.
Yeah. Because
that's something like the default that everybody goes to down here. If you're not a computer person, which I'm not, and you're a digital nomad, you're in Peru, you're from the United States, you're either a computer person or you're going to be teaching English online. I don't think I have the patience to teach English online. And I think I don't want to say it's beneath me, but I think I'm overqualified. I mean, I didn't get the master's degree. I'm not going to get a doctorate because I want to teach basic. And I ran into an attorney down here who's retired, and he's living with his girlfriend who's an approving attorney, and he teaches English online. Now I think he's just doing it to give himself something to do.
Yeah.
But I would like to do editing, proofreading, something like that, or run a business. I'm thinking about an Airbnb down here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, I don't own a house in the United States. I'm thinking maybe purchase a house in the United States, rent it out, fly back. When it's not rented out, stay at it, so on and so forth. Yeah. So I want to stay back. Somebody had told me when I asked him what his goals were, and he said, I'm retired. I don't have goals. I only have interests. I think that's the wrong answer.
I agree.
I think you need to have goals. Your goals don't have to be financial. They don't have to be educational. It could be, I want to make sure that my grandson has a better role model than I had. It could be, it could be anything. It could be travel. My best friend, he's 72 years old. He goes to the gym up to 6 times a week, twice a day, goes hiking about 50 miles a week. And I said, you realize you're not supposed to be able to do that when you're 72, right? You see, I said, you do understand that's not normal. and he said, yes. And I don't know how he gets done so much. He's writing a novel too. He's a grandfather.
Yeah.
His wife passed away a few years, about 4 years ago, 4.5 years now. And he has a girlfriend. They're going to be getting married. But he's always like, I'm painting the house. I'm painting this. He's a moving target. He just doesn't stop moving. I don't know how.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Ken, I like to always end our episode with something that's, kind of fun, a fun question.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have one person to sit down with and have a conversation with, alive or dead, who would it be?
Well, believe it or not, I'm a Christian. I think it would be Jesus Christ.
Okay. Yeah.
So I say, what happened? What is the truth here? We have so many people arguing.
Yep.
Tell me what happened.
Yep. Absolutely.
Tell me, did you crack jokes when you're growing up? What did you do?
I think you could get a lot of answers that way. That is for sure. Well, Ken, if you don't mind taking a quick moment and tell everybody where they can follow you to purchase your books down the road and keep track of what's going on with you, I'll give you that opportunity to throw that plug out.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay. So I have a web page that my friend built for me, and it is KenWebb69, KenWebb 69.com. KenWebb69.com. I'm very excited. I'll be adding this video to it also once it does come out. I put all the videos on there. You can see me on Instagram, Webinator 2000, on YouTube. Same thing. You've got my videos for Ken Webb. I'm all over there now because I have so many videos up there. And if you go onto my webpage, please go in there and help me pick out what you think would make the best book cover. Because just by doing that from these 3 selections, you will get the chance to win one free book. And it doesn't matter if I use the cover you selected or not. We're going to have a drawing, and I'll probably have my girlfriend reach in. And for the people who just voted, pull out a name, and whatever name gets pulled out, that person is going to get a free book. All
right. Well, Ken, I appreciate you coming on. We'll make sure that we get all these links and everything put in the description, and I'll get some images and everything thrown up so that people have no excuse why they can't follow you.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad to see other fellow veterans are out there documenting their story in a unique way.
All right. Thank you.